What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Sports. And apparently, in the sports universe, we do not get days off from breaking news. Happy Memorial Day to everybody that is joining today. Hopefully, you enjoyed your entire weekend. But today, barely basically a half hour ago, we get some breaking news developing in Sixers land. We all know how poorly the goddamn second round completely annoyed us and completely frustrated us once again. Then Doc Rivers eventually got fired. We all knew that was probably going to be the most likely case scenario that was going to happen. And then it was going to start the process of getting a new head coach. We saw from Daryl Morey's exit press conference that this was probably going to be a process. Honestly, this kind of went quicker than I expected it to be. I kind of maybe thought it would maybe take another month or two, but the NBA draft is eventually coming up, and I'm assuming you're going to want your new coach, by the time the draft happens and before the draft. So that's what the Sixers do. They find a way. They get their new head coach. There was a lot of coaches on the market, and they find their guy, probably one of the best coaches on the market, in Nick Nurse, former Toronto Raptors head coach, who got fired this past season. So, honestly, just looking at the higher face value, he was definitely one of the top three guys that the Sixers could have hired. He was mainly one of the top guys that the Sixers were linked to this entire time. You see the report from Woj, Shams, and all that stuff that, Nick Nurse, he was connected to the Sixers. He was connected to the Milwaukee Bucks open, spot. So there were a lot of spots that Nick Nurse could have landed. The Milwaukee Bucks went in a different direction, and Nick Nurse dropped out of those discussions with the Milwaukee Bucks. So that probably ensured that he was going somewhere else, most likely Philadelphia or Phoenix, because they also have a vacant head coaching position. But he chooses the Sixers. Daryl Morey makes the first big move of this huge offseason, because this is probably the biggest offseason of Daryl Morey's tenure here with the Philadelphia 76ers as their president, and he's going to have to make a lot of moves. This was the year to get out of the second round, and once again, you failed. Joel Embiid, even though it wasn't solely on the hands of Joel Embiid, he was one of the main culprits of that. Joel Embiid not stepping up when the time mattered most. James Harden having two 40-point games and then completely disappearing for the rest of the games in that Boston series, and just the inability to make a shot in the final 5 minutes of Game 6, where instead of talking about this entire situation of finding a new head coach, we probably could be in the third round as we speak. But now, like, if we're talking about the third round, we got the Boston Celtics possibly about to make history, the first team to ever do it in the NBA, coming back down from 3-0 to possibly reverse sweep the Miami Heat. I believe that's going to be today, or that's going to be tomorrow or Wednesday. So that's definitely going to be some must-watch television there. And a lot of, opinions were changing from Sixers fans basically throughout this entire series to, okay, the Sixers made the third round. They probably weren't going to beat this Heat team because they're mopping the floor with the Boston Celtics. And now more people are just continuing to get frustrated as Boston finds a way to find a spark, and they're just edging their way back into this series, and they're forcing a Game 7 back on their home court at the TD Garden. So we're going to have to see how everything shapes up there in Sixers land to see everyone's reaction to that. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Sixers fans that are cheering on Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat to finally get the job done because, the Denver Nuggets, they swept the LA Lakers. They've been waiting for a while now to see who they're going to be playing in the NBA Finals. So that's definitely going to be a very interesting Game 7 there. But away from that, it was interesting just to bring up that topic. But just looking at Nick Nurse as a whole, he was hired as the head coach of the Toronto Raptors in 2018-19. He's been their head coach for the past few seasons now. He was an assistant coach with the Toronto Raptors before he was moved into the head coaching position. And in his first season as a Toronto Raptors head coach, he goes 58-24, and Kawhi Leonard, with the miracle shot in round 2 of Game 7 against the 76ers in the final seconds. Still think about it to this day. One of the most heartbreaking situations in Philadelphia sports history. After that, they go on and win an NBA championship against the Golden State Warriors dynasty. So in his first season as a head coach, he wins an NBA championship. The following season, Him and the Toronto Raptors got a record of 53-19 before they move on into the bubble, because we all know the COVID shortened that season, and then the pause happened, and then you eventually got into the rest of the Disney World bubble down there in Orlando. He did win the Coach of the Year that year. Toronto, I don't even believe they went far in the playoffs that year. So, yeah, that was just a weird year. It was just a bubble year, so a lot of people just write off the bubble, so which is very understandable. And then I believe the 2019-20 season as well, that was the first year without Kawhi Leonard, because he immediately left after winning that championship with the Toronto Raptors, and he went over to the Clippers in free agency that offseason. But he still found a way with a veteran group to win 50-plus games, win Coach of the Year, get back into the playoffs. So that's 2 very successful years there for Nick Nurse. And then the year after the COVID-shortened season, we got another, the COVID-shortened season following that. It was a, 27-45 record, shortened season, very underwhelming year for the Toronto Raptors. They draft high in the lottery, and then eventually with a very young group of players, gets them back into the playoffs. Last season, 48-34, they were a pain a little bit for the Sixers in the first round. Sixers win the first 3 games, then Toronto wins the next 2. A lot of people are joking about the Sixers. Oh, they're going to choke this. Doc Rivers, he's going to have another epic choking collapse in the playoffs. It's going to happen in the first round this time. It didn't happen. The Sixers got the job done eventually, but he made it a little bit of a pain for the Sixers. The way he attacks Joel Embiid, the way, that he goes after the star players of the opposing team, the way he plays aggressive on defense. He sets his team up for success and everything like that. The way he goes to battle for his players. We saw in last year's first round, where he was constantly chirping at the refs, constantly trying to, just get his team some life, just try to get his team back into the series. Even though us as Sixers fans, we were very annoyed by it, because we knew at the end of the day what he was trying to do. He was trying to get on the refs' sides. He was trying to get some calls in the team's favor, because at the end of the day, he knew his team wasn't as good as that Sixers team that he was playing, but he still found a way to sneak 2 wins in that series after the Sixers went up 3-0. So it really shows you he goes to war with his team. He fights for his players, everything like that. He tries to put his team in the best the best position possible to succeed. That's why he's one of the best head coaches on the market. But this year, finished with a 41-41 record. They were trying to take another step with this young core and move a little bit up in the win column. They took a big step backwards, finished with a 500 record. They don't even make the play-in tournament to get into the playoffs. So, yeah. Very underwhelming year for the Toronto Raptors, and I guess it was just about time, thing isn't working out. Get a new face in the locker room, new message, and Nick Nurse is fired, and he was on the market. So, and the Sixers get their guy. That's basically it. That's all basically you could describe it here. Overall, his coaching career record with the Toronto Raptors, 227 wins, 163 losses. And if you look at basically throughout the rest of the coaching, possibilities that the Sixers could have went with, Mike D'Antoni was one of those other, possibilities, just because of the connection with Daryl Morey and James Harden. We still don't know how that entire connection is going to go out. Now that you got your new head coach, it's not a James Harden guy. Is James Harden going to return next year? Personally, I don't think he is. And personally, I don't want him to, if it's going to be for that, 4-year type of extension with a huge, salary tied to it. I don't want the Sixers to get stuck in another max contract, like, just getting themselves involved with another Tobias Harris situation, because, the Tobias Harris contract, granted, a lot of people want to blame the Jimmy Butler situation on it, but that entire situation was choosing between Ben Simmons and Jimmy Butler, and Brett Brown chose Ben Simmons. Then they do the sign and trade with Jimmy Butler, and Tobias Harris was just a collateral damage from that, having to keep one of those main guys that you traded for, and they gave him a max contract, which eventually turned to be a very, very gigantic mistake for your team, because really not good asset management there. You were never able to fulfill a fully deep team just because of all that salary that was tied to Tobias. And this is going to be the last year of Tobias' contract. Most likely he is going to be traded, whether it's going to be at this offseason or the trade deadline, because I think Keith Pompey has even brought up before that you might not get the full value for Tobias Harris, with teams not knowing what they're going to be going into the season. teams might not be willing to take on a Tobias Harris contract until they know what they are, and that's most likely not until the trade deadline. So, yeah, we're just going to wait and see what happens with Tobias. I'm not sure what Daryl Morey is going to do, but he's going to have a lot of work under him, because if you're going to run it back, I'm not sure what you're going to do with James Harden. Whether it's, he accepts it. I'd be more willing to take a 2-year deal with James Harden. I'm not going with a full 4 years just because of the pure inconsistencies. I'm not taking another max contract. I'm not allocating my assets like that once again because, like I said, that's the reason why this Sixers team has not been able to, be deep. Be a very deep team. Be a very deep team like the Boston Celtics, because they can pluck guys in off their bench and they can come onto the court and contribute. The Sixers really haven't had those type of guys that can just, always be a threat off the bench for at least 10, 15 points in a span of 20, 25 minutes, playing some good minutes off of the bench. We really don't have those guys, and we never had those guys for a while just because this team and the way they spread out their money has not been good. Meaning the Tobias Harris contract, and if you sign James Harden to that max extension, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be, good for the long run. You're going to be basically stuck in the same position that you've been for the past so many years. So that's going to be the biggest question mark. And if you do move on with James Harden, is it going to be like a sign and trade type of thing? I know there's going to be a lot of connections now, since Nick Nurse is now the head coach of the Sixers. There's going to be a lot of reports of, do the Sixers maybe pluck someone from the Toronto Raptors that can maybe, go off the bench or something like that. I've seen some people see OG Anunoby from Toronto as well. So there's definitely a lot of question marks that we can get into as the offseason goes along. But the one thing that I'm just looking towards with this hire, it's just the fact that what is this going to do for Joel Embiid? What is this going to do for some of the other players on this roster? Because we still don't know what this roster is going to look like next year. I would say the main locks are going to be Joel Embiid. It's going to be, I'm not going to say James Harden is a lock. I think he's gone. I think Tobias Harris is gone, so I'm not going to say he's a lock. I want to say Tyrese Maxey is a lock, but I'm just not entirely sure what's going to happen, because what if Joel Embiid demands to get another, star player on this team? You're going to have to part ways with Maxey to probably get that done, to get another, star caliber player to pair with Joel Embiid. So that's going to be a major question mark there. Or does, Daryl Morey stay with Tyrese Maxey and see what Nick Nurse can do to further develop his process? Tyrese Maxey has been getting better year after year after year, and he's only 22 years old, 22, 23. So he still has a lot of growing to do in this league. But if you're looking at your window right now and you're trying to win a championship with Joel Embiid, granted, we've learned a lot about Joel Embiid in that second round against the Boston Celtics, to where he still doesn't know how to finish off a playoff series, especially when he just went up 3-2 and he was, 5 minutes away left in the fourth quarter from possibly getting to the third round for the first time in his career. And they fell flat on their face. Joel Embiid fell flat on his face. So can Nick Nurse, with, recent championship experience, find a way to unlock that out of Joel Embiid? Could a new coach, could a new voice in that locker room find a way to help Joel Embiid? That's going to be the biggest question mark going into this year. And basically just the surrounding roster. I have no idea what Daryl Morey is going to do. I have no idea what players he's going to do, because you got to find a way to make the money work. You can, pluck in all these types of trades, all these type of mock trades. You got to find a way to make the money work. You got to find a way to get the right players into this system, because it's going to be a brand new system that Nick Nurse is, teaching. Likes to be very aggressive on defense, likes to force turnovers, likes to force missed shots. So, you're going to have to find a way. They're going to have to find a way. Every coach comes with their weaknesses. Every coach comes with their strengths. And Nick Nurse, he was one of the top coaches on the market for a reason. And the Sixers, they did pluck the best coach from the market. So they got to find a way. Bring in this new system. What can Nick Nurse do as a brand new voice for this locker room? Find a way to unlock the potential of this team. But still, you don't know what the potential of the team is going to be now, when there's going to be different faces. Because you don't know if James Harden's going to be back. You don't know what's going to happen to Tobias Harris. You don't know what's going to happen with Tyrese Maxey. You don't know what's going to happen to a lot of these people. Like I said, out of the main starting five, I would say the only locks are Joel Embiid and PJ Tucker, because no one's taking that PJ Tucker contract. No one's taking that at all. And the only way you're trading Joel Embiid is if he requests a trade, and I don't see that happening. Especially now that you hired Nick Nurse. I don't see Joel Embiid requesting a trade right now. I don't see that happening. So it's basically just, what do you do, again, to try and surround Joel Embiid? Do you try to run it back with a Tyrese Maxey? Run in the offense and see what Nick Nurse can do to unlock that type of potential? Or do you try to go out, you make a sign and trade with James Harden, trade him to another team that's willing to take him on? I know, like, all the rumors with Houston and all that stuff. Do they do a sign and trade with Houston? Like, I'm just bringing up these topics because I have no idea what you do. Because you're basically stuck between a rock and a hard place. Or some people like to say it, a rock and a hardened place. Because, you're stuck. James Harden's basically controlling your floor right here, controlling your future at this point. Because you don't know if he's coming back, and if he does come back, it's probably going to be for a terrible contract that you're going to be tied to again, and just can't really allocate your assets properly again. Because you're tied so much money to, honestly, a James Harden that really doesn't deserve that big max contract, in my opinion. Because father time, he's only getting older, father time's only going to creep up on him more. Yeah, he'll still show the glimpses of Houston Harden, but then you see more glimpses of him getting older, him being more invisible in games, him being more frustrating to watch, his shot not going in as much as it used to do, him being afraid to go to the basket, him being afraid of getting blocked, him driving the paint and immediately passing the ball to another location where a guy is clearly not ready for. It's just a bunch of frustrating stuff with James Harden that we've just been way too used to this year. It's just been a mixed bag of very frustrating things that show you hope and what the potential of this team could be if James Harden just played like that consistently, not even scoring 40 points a night, because we knew that wasn't going to be sustainable. But give me 20, 25 points, 10 plus assists. Just be somewhere that can facilitate this offense like you did in the regular season. Be the guy that led the league in assists in the regular season to go along with your duo partner that led the league in scoring again for the second straight year. Your partner that won the NBA MVP. But now Nick Nurse has a chance to, work with the MVP and see what he has a chance to unlock more in Joel Embiid, and hopefully he can find a way to unlock with Joel Embiid. That's all we can hope at this point. A new coach has recent championship experience, knows possibly what teams can do to shut down Joel Embiid, because he was in that position himself with the Toronto Raptors a couple of years ago. Marc Gasol and all that stuff, Serge Ibaka, bringing those bigs along to really get in the face of Joel Embiid. Marc Gasol was really an issue for Joel Embiid in that second round series against Toronto a couple of years ago. So Nick Nurse probably knows as much as any other coach that goes up against Joel Embiid on how other teams are probably going to go and defend him in the playoffs. And maybe Nick Nurse can find a way to work around that. But then at the end of the day, what is the supporting cast for Joel Embiid going to do? Is it going to be another situation where D'Anthony Melton goes off in game one and then he just can't hit a shot the rest of the series? Is another James Harden situation, another PJ Tucker where he can't hit his shots consistently? That's the question marks. And then, not having reliable guys off the bench that you can count on in crucial minutes. Paul Reed had his moments. I'm sure Paul Reed's going to be back. George Niang, he's unplayable defensively, and when he's cold, he's very cold. When he's hot, he's very hot and lights out. Kind of an unplayable player in the playoffs, honestly. And there's really not much else. Jalen McDaniels, he looked completely terrified against Boston, completely terrified in that playoff run. He was barely used by Doc Rivers. So there's a lot of question marks. No doubt about it. I don't know what this team does. I don't know what Daryl Morey has to do. That's basically it there. We're going to have to find out. There's going to be a lot more moves to be made. Maybe they do something at the draft day. Maybe they make a big trade there, because we all know this team doesn't really have any draft picks because they used a lot of them to get James Harden in the Ben Simmons trade. So they're going to have to find a way to work around this. I'm not sure what you do. And I don't envy Daryl Morey's job at this point, because he's one of the reasons you're in this position to begin with. So, and I still make that, James Harden trade 10 times out of 10 because of, Ben Simmons and all that crap. Guy just doesn't want to play basketball anymore. But now it's just, you're in a very frustrating position. I'm still very frustrated. I think a lot of us are still frustrated. But hopefully this Nick Nurse signing can maybe spark some hope. And maybe, when you listen to him for the first time. I'm not sure when he's going to have his press conference. He'll probably have it in the next few days or so. Maybe he'll have it tomorrow. Maybe he'll have it Wednesday. You just got to wait and see. Maybe what he says in that press conference, maybe he sparks some hope. Maybe he does spark some hope with the Philly fan base, because we really need it. We really need it. And here's also a fun stat for you, just in terms of Philadelphia in general, in the head coaching position. So this is from Bob Vitrone Jr., former Daily News writer. Nick Nurse will be the 21st head coach to lead a Philadelphia baseball, football, basketball, or hockey team since January 1st of 2013. It's a lot of head coaches. It's a lot of head coaches. My God. My God. But, yeah, right now, it's basically what's going to happen with James Harden. I don't expect him to be back. I would be shocked if he's back. I'd really be scared if he's back, because I don't know what the contract's going to be. I don't see him taking anything less than a max contract just because it's James Harden. I don't think he's going to come back for cheap at all. He's desperately not going to. So it's basically just a wait and see process here. I don't know. I don't know. I do not know at all. We just got to wait. You just got to hope that Nick Nurse can unlock Joel Embiid. I think that's the most important thing. Can Nick Nurse find a way to unlock Joel Embiid? I think that's the most important thing that we got to figure out there. Can he unlock him? And then whatever Daryl Morey does this offseason, we'll talk about. I'm sure the first thing is going to be the James Harden situation, or unless he goes out and shocks us with another big trade. I don't know what's going to happen. I know a lot of people are talking about Dame Lillard and all that stuff. I know Dame Lillard's really, passionate about staying in Portland. I'm not sure what you're going to have to cough up to get him. I'm not sure what other moves you make. But that's not my job to do. That's Daryl Morey's. And we're going to have to wait for that to happen. So, yeah. We do have a voicemail here on the Anytime Hotline. We also have a couple of comments here. Corey says Embiid is going to play 45 minutes per game now. And Scott says, just like when they hired Doc, should be a very interesting offseason and training camp. I do agree with that. We have a voicemail here from Sean, so let's get to that. You can leave those at 215-839-9885. Any thoughts and opinions on Philadelphia sports recaps and everything like that. You can also utilize the YouTube live feed, your preference at the end of the day. So let's see what Sean has to say on Nick Nurse as the hire for the 76ers. Wait, I think let's see. Let me fix that browser there. Yeah, I think I deleted that one browser, so let me get that back. Browser, add. Give me a second here, boys. Move that down. Move that down. There we go. Make sure that's there. Sorry. My whole thing got screwed up, so hopefully that's fixed there. Yeah, that should be fixed. Okay. Hopefully you guys can now hear it. So let me remove that. Where's the one? Let's see. Where is it at? Or actually, it wasn't browser. I think it was an audio capture device, actually. Audio capture, audio output. There we go. Sorry about this again. Let me put that there. Let me remove that. Let me rename this. Where's audio capture? There we go. Put that down there. Can I rename this? Let's see.
Holidays for the 76ers, that's for sure. First of all, happy Memorial Day as we honor those who gave their lives and limbs and countless other wounds in the fields of battle for our freedoms. Keep that in perspective today. The Nick Nurse hiring, look, I mean, I think the guy's a damn good coach. He may be the best coach, in my opinion, the Sixers have had here since Larry Brown. But that being said, we know that the NBA, especially, is a players' league. The players rule all. They control a lot of personnel decisions as far as where they want to go, who they want to play for, etc. So that's my issue with Nurse. I think the Sixers got the coach right, but what they're going to do to surround him with the pieces that he needs to win another NBA championship, that's the biggest question mark. And that I don't know. They're a franchise that has no draft capital. They're a franchise that's still kind of being held hostage, if you will, with the James Harden situation. Other than Tobias Harris, who isn't going to bring you much in a deal, what can you deal? Do they trade Embiid? Do they trade a Tyrese Maxey, or do they just look to bring in supplemental pieces around him? Do they go to his old club, Toronto, and maybe look to strike a deal with them? I don't know. But a solid coaching move by the 76ers. I do like this hire.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Sean. It's a good hire. Basically, you got the coach right. Now, how do you surround him with the talent, him and Joel Embiid? Because I don't think it's 98%, 99.95% chance that Joel Embiid is here next year. The only way Joel Embiid is going to be traded is that he requests a trade. So Joel Embiid is most likely going to be in a Sixers uniform next year. It's basically what's the other talent that you surround with him and Nick Nurse next year to, find a way to finally get past the third round. That's going to be the most important thing. Like you said, they're most likely still going to be held hostage by James Harden. I don't think James Harden is going to be a Sixer next year. So you're going to be, what do you do with James Harden? Is it going to be a sign and trade type of thing that you did with Jimmy Butler? So it's a lot of things that you're going to have to figure out. You don't have draft capital. I don't know what you're going to do. Maybe do you flip Tyrese Maxey to get another big name in here, to get another, second star with Joel Embiid? Maybe someone that's a little bit better than, a 33, 34-year-old James Harden? That's the thing you're going to have to find out and wait. So, like I said, I don't envy Daryl Morey's job, but it's going to be a hard job, and he's got to do it. He's got to do it because I don't think Sixers fans can be, patient any longer. We all know next season, not many people are going to be caring about the regular season. It's going to be what you do in the playoffs. And I don't blame Sixers fans for thinking like that. I don't. I definitely don't. So, we're basically just going to have to wait and see what they do with this offseason. You're most likely going to be hearing from Nick Nurse over the next couple of days or so. So you got to see. Got to see. Definitely got to see. And right now, it's basically just playing it by ear, taking it day by day. Wait for the first big move to come. This was one of the first things to drop for this Sixers team this offseason, probably one of the biggest. Was replacing that head coach, was probably the most obvious. I thought it was going to be taking a little bit longer, but it eventually got there. Now, what do you do to supplement the roster with Joel Embiid and everything else? Is it going to be Tyrese Maxey that runs the offense? I don't know. Do you move Tyrese Maxey to get something else that's big here? I have no idea. Do you do a sign and trade with James Harden? Hopefully, because I don't want to see James Harden here next year. I'm kind of done with that experience. I'm done. I don't want to sign him to another max deal because you're just going to put yourself in the same spot that you did with Tobias Harris. Now, Tobias, we'll see what happens, what type of value you get back for him. Like Sean said, I don't think it's going to be much, but you never know. Then you're just going to have to see what else is supplemented with this roster. So, that's basically it there. That is. Only positive that Nick Nurse will play the younger players. Yeah, I could definitely see that. He was definitely forced on his hand to play younger players with Toronto since they went basically on a youth movement after winning that championship. And they showed in that, first year with all the young guys, they made the playoffs. They took a step back this year, but he can definitely get the most out of his players. So we'll definitely can see, if they do keep Tyrese Maxey, how further can Nick Nurse develop Tyrese Maxey and everything like that. Can some of these younger guys from the G League be, Jaden Springer and all that stuff, could they be, some people that you can rely off the bench. So there's a lot of question marks there. Sixers fans shouldn't watch until round 2. Yeah, I wouldn't blame people for thinking like that. I wouldn't. I'm probably going to have that same type of mentality. Honest to God. So, yeah, it's basically just a wait-and-see process now. Wait and see what Daryl Morey has to do. See what moves he makes. And see what this Sixers roster is going to look like come training camp. So, that's going to do it for today, everybody. Hopefully today, had a good Memorial Day weekend. Had a good time relaxing today, honoring people that we've lost in battle and all that. So hopefully everyone enjoys the rest of their Memorial Day. And thank you for joining the stream as always. So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section down below. I like to see those. Don't forget to drop a like on the video. Don't forget to check out everything in the description down below. Don't forget to check out, like I said, the description down below. I just drew a blank there. Been a long day. Been a long day. Also, hit that subscribe button. Does me a great deal of service. Join the TTP Sports family. It'll do me a great deal. Also, use the code TTP Sports, $20 off your first purchase at SeatGeek. Great deal, don't pass it up. Thank you, everyone, for joining it today. Did the Boston Celtics make history by reverse sweeping the Miami Heat? We'll find out. So, thank you once again, everyone.